If you've ever watched a few videos on this channel before, you know I have an affinity towards these little 80s point and shoot film cameras, specifically the Canon Sureshot line of cameras. And as someone who has been shooting film for many years now, I find myself drawn to these cheap, abundantly made, rugged little point and shoot cameras that Canon made so many of. To this day, if I'm traveling or for a big project or just on vacation or attending a wedding, I'll always carry one of these in my back pocket for behind the scenes style photos or just intimate moments. The reason these serve such a good purpose is because they're cheap and there are hundreds of them available online on eBay. If I break one or lose one on a trip, I won't be that upset because it just cost me about 50 bucks. Hell, I found this one for $10 at a flea market. Most importantly, they take very good photos. Some of my favorite photos while traveling have come using this unassuming little point and shoot. Also, these cameras have been very resilient. I've had this one drop and get run over by a bicycle, and you can still see the scratches all over the back, but it still works completely flawlessly. So naturally, I come to you today with another Canon Sureshot. This one specifically, the Canon AF35ML. This camera was made in 1981, and it drew attention of photographers back then, as is done for mine today, because of this behemoth of a lens on the front. This camera has a f/1.9 aperture on a 40mm lens. So yes, you can take beautiful sharp portraits and do some low light photography with a basic point and shoot camera. Just like most Sureshot models, this camera is also relatively cheap and abundant on eBay. I picked this one up for about 60 bucks, but I got lucky because it fashions this massive adapter, which alone costs about 60 bucks. There's definitely a lot of quirks with this camera. Most negative reviews online I've seen complain about the bulkiness of it and how loud the shutter is. Ultimately, those quirks didn't bother me that much. I ran a role shooting some street photography in Chicago. I thought the camera looked pretty cool and the shutter was fine. The rear dial though is very annoying. The rear dial controls the on-off, battery check, and self-timer, and it doesn't click between each setting. So you can easily be on, off, or self-timer without even knowing it. Other than that, this is an unassuming, easily accessible little point and shoot that Canon made in the 80s with a very unique and impressive lens. I ran a couple of rolls through it so far, so let's go look at the photos. Okay, so let's look at some of the photos. This is one of the first photos I took. I think this might be the very first photo I took with this camera. I was in Chicago visiting my sister, and she lives outside the city. Funnily enough, there's a Midwest farm behind her house. And I just kind of went out to the backyard and took this photo on a sunny, wintry day. I really love the composition of this photo. I love the tonality and the colors of this photo. It really has that low contrast, but very nice saturation. It's a very well composed photo on a very bright day. And then I try to use the self-timer and it works. So next one we were in this little sort of town center outside of Chicago. I was using Portra 400, I believe. So you can see those kind of magenta hues more prominent, but also the light's pretty low, so you're not getting any harsh shadows or anything. Honestly, shooting in distance, the camera lens is very sharp. And then one of the evenings, I took the train and went over to the city. This is at the Grand Station, Union Station in Chicago. And you can see the low light capabilities here. It's pretty, I mean, it's indoors. I don't think I was using any flash or anything. And I was still able to get some details in this photo, and it's a usable photo and it looks pretty cool. Okay, and this is outside and I was using the flash and I took a photo of my fiance. I haven't really figured out how to nail focus on this yet because it is a low aperture lens. In a low-ish light setting, it's gonna go down to those 1.9 to f/2 aperture settings. So if you miss focus, you miss focus. And that's how it looks here. But actually, I kind of really like the vibe of this photo. Even though she's out of focus, you can see the drop shadow behind her from the flash, and the background is really nice. So it's still a workable image and she looks great. So Okay, and then here's an example of the focus system working. This is in a pretty low aperture. You can tell because when you zoom in, you can see the subject is nice and sharp and the background is nice and blurred out. I don't think this is at f1/9. This is probably like f2.8 or something like that. But it is a very nice and appealing portrait that you expect from like a Nikon F3 with a low aperture lens. But getting that with a point and shoot where you don't have to do anything with the settings or anything, let the camera do everything. Getting a nice portrait like this is, I think, where this camera shines. Okay, and then here I took a photo of the busy highway. The camera is very sharp shooting in distance. There's really no issues with it. It's a nice composition. It was a nice overcast day, so the light's super even. So all these compositions came out really well and well lit. And then this is probably my favorite photo I took from that little trip. We were headed to this restaurant bar. I just love taking photos of like smoke or mist or fog because it creates that really nice moody depth. Yeah, this composition came out really well. Love that. Okay, now we move on to the second roll that I shot with this camera. I was camping. Now we're back in Western North Carolina. This is the setting where I made my previous video about the Fuji GL690. And I brought this as kind of a backup while we're camping. And then here, my fiance took a portrait of me with the camping setup. That's kind of what this sort of camera just serves the purpose of. It doesn't have to be optically some of the greatest images ever, but still the film emulsion gives this like color and tonality that just makes it look really, really cool. And then here, just took a picture of the beer with the flash on. Love that rich contrast and the colors that I rendered. The farm that we were camping in, the property had a couple of dogs that just roamed around. I think her name is Gracie. It was a beautiful dog and she would just follow us around. So I went on a walk around the property and she just kind of followed us around. So I just kind of snapped some photos of her. And here's one of them. I'm a big fan of this photo. And then the second one here, is that Gracie? There's two dogs, I can't tell the difference. I think that's still Gracie, okay. And then these series of images, we were staying in a little Airbnb the night after. I really love shooting through doors. So you get kind of the foreground all in shadow and exposed for the outside. Okay, this one, it's right around sunset for this one. And we had a lot of cloud coverage on this day. So you know the sunset's gonna be nice and vibrant because of all the clouds that the light reflects off of. So we got a lot of nice colors in this. And low light, the image came out very sharp because of that low aperture on this lens. So it's a nice scenery with nice colors on the sunset. It's a good image. And then here, I really love this portrait. So I didn't use flash on this, just kind of shot this with low light and it exposed it really well. The camera meter works really well. And I love how the subject, my fiance, her face is nice and illuminated while the rest of the image, the shadowy areas are all kind of just falling off. So it just creates that nice depth and nice pleasing composition. It's a very nice pleasing composition with good colors and just tonally. I really, really like this. It just came out really well. And then here I just turned on the flash and took a picture of her. Again, didn't blow it out. Came out really nice and sharp. And you get some nice colors. The background you see is a bit more illuminated now because the flash is the light's falling and reaching out farther. But it does a really good job of the meter not blowing out the image. So both of these different types of images, I think this camera is very good for portrait photography because of that low aperture lens. Anyways, those are all the pictures I wanted to share on the two rolls that I shot with this. Honestly, really good photos in there, a lot of usable stuff from a kind of travel camera that I'm gonna use this as. I think I'm gonna use this a lot. I'm gonna bring it with me in most trips, honestly, and hoping to get some really cool photos with this. I've probably said this before in previous videos. It doesn't matter if you're using a $900 film camera or a $90 film camera. You're still running the same roll of film through both cameras. And the film emulsion does majority of the work when it comes to how your photos turn out. So if you want to start out in film, an inexpensive little point and shoot camera like this is a really great option. If you have any questions about film cameras or just want to chat, put a comment below and I'll see you guys in the next one. If you notice this film negative hanging behind me in the background, it's not a prop. That's just me procrastinating on scanning all my film. Maybe one day, maybe by next video, I'll have it scanned.